coming into this season, the Pheonix Suns and Deandre Ayton could not come to an agreement on terms to a contract because Ayton wanted the max deal and Phoenix were not going to give it to him. And after the Pheonix Suns crashed out of the playoffs with a blowout Game 7 loss to the Mavericks, it doesn't look like that max deal is coming. So Deandre Ayton could be made available in the offseason. So in today's video, we're going to be breaking down if the Raptors should go all out to bring in Ayton to the team and what sort of fit he would have in Toronto. Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? It's Jacob here, back with Amateur Hour Sports. Thank you so much for joining me on today's video. On this channel, Amateur Hour Sports, we give you the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news all throughout the offseason with at least 3 videos a week. So if you want to see more of these videos, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We are getting so close to 9,000 subscribers. I think today could be the day we get to that milestone. You can help us along the way, and you might even be that 9,000th subscriber. But let's get into our content for today. Deandre Ayton could be made available by the Pheonix Suns in the offseason. And this is pretty exciting for Raptors fans who have wanted to bring in a true center, and a lot of Raptors fans have wanted to bring in Deandre Ayton specifically. Like I was saying in the intro, the reason Deandre Ayton might be made available here is that he's an RFA now that the season is over. The Pheonix Suns, before this season, decided that he wasn't worth the max contract. Deandre Ayton kind of wanted to gamble on himself to earn that max contract over the course of a season. And despite having a pretty good season, the Suns were the only 60-win team in the league. I just don't think he's done enough to quite get to that point. But still, he has a lot of value. And if he doesn't really see him getting that sort of value in Phoenix, he might look to another team to get that sort of value. And again, he's a restricted free agent. So if Phoenix don't want to match a certain offer, they feel like they can do a little bit better with other players, then Deandre Ayton could be free to go to a different team. But there's a lot of stuff we have to cover in today's video. So firstly, we're going to assess what sort of season Deandre Ayton had, how much money he would be worth. Then we need to discuss what sort of fit he would have with the Toronto Raptors. Then we would have to discuss how the Raptors can acquire Deandre Ayton, whether it be as a free agent or whether it be in a sign and trade. And then we need to discuss if there are teams that are going to be willing to give him that max, if the Raptors should be one of them. So stick around to the end to catch all of that information. But first of all, the season that Deandre Ayton had. The Pheonix Suns, like I said, the only 60-win team in the league, and Deandre Ayton was a big part of that. Now, the Pheonix Suns came crashing down after blowing a 2-0 lead in the playoffs in back-to-back years. Obviously, they were up 2-0 in the NBA Finals in 2021 before losing 4 games in a row, and this time up 2-0 against the Dallas Mavericks. Then they were up 3-2, and then they get absolutely demolished in Game 7, largely in part to very poor play from Deandre Ayton, who got benched in the fourth quarter. But, admittedly, everybody on the Suns was absolutely garbage in that game, so it's not just on Deandre Ayton. But nonetheless, the Phoenix Suns are now looking at Deandre Ayton, and they're probably still thinking this guy's not worth the max contract. Despite having a pretty good season, it's just not quite up to max levels. Let's just take a look a bit how good this season was. So 17.2 points per game, that is pretty good from Deandre Ayton. 10.2 rebounds as well. That's pretty good to get out of your center. He also posed 0.7 blocks per game and a really good field goal percentage, above 63%. And honestly, that's a little bit misleading against him because he operates really well in mid-range as well, so not just all at the rim. So with that midi averaging 63%, that's impressive. The three-point percentage looks impressive, but is a little bit misleading the other way because he only took 19 threes in the season. So yeah, just under 37% from 3 looks great, but he only shot 7 for 19 from 3 on the season. So, not a lot of a sample size there, but maybe does it give us a glimmer of hope that, let's say, the Nick Nurse School of Shooting could get that volume up and get that percentage right about the same? It's possible, and something to think about. Free throw percentage, pretty good for a center, just about 75%. So a good season for Deandre Ayton, but I think we can all agree that this is just not quite up to a max contract player. And I did ask you guys in the poll yesterday in the community tab about this, and yeah, the common consensus here is that Deandre Ayton is not worth the max contract, but he's still a very good player, and he's still valuable, a valuable asset to a team. And the Toronto Raptors are entering an offseason where, yeah, maybe they did lack a little bit of rim protection, and this is a center that would really tighten up the rim defense, the paint defense, and also somebody who can kind of give you a little bit of defense on the outside. Now, Deandre Ayton is not, a supreme defender in the NBA, but his size, he uses it well. He moves well for his size, and he can definitely compete in those areas. He would be a very good player to have for the Raptors. Offensively, working with the sort of offense that we run, he works very well in the pick and roll. I think it would be a great partner for Fred VanVleet. I actually think he would help make Pascal Siakam better by setting the screens and maybe taking away a little bit of the attention on the interior. Even Pascal Siakam driving and setting up Deandre Ayton. Like, that's something that would work really well for the Raptors. I think the fit here is pretty good. I think the fit here, it's not necessarily a perfect fit here because the Raptors, who rotate so much on defense, how much do I really trust Deandre Ayton when he has to go to the outside? I mean, Game 7 was really bad, and it was a bad reflection on everybody in the Pheonix Suns, but there were a lot of occasions where the Dallas Mavericks were picking on Deandre Ayton and putting him in pick and roll, so he'd have to defend Dinwiddie, so he would have to defend Luka Doncic, and Dinwiddie and Doncic were so spectacular, they absolutely torched him in the game. But nonetheless, a defender who can do a job on the outside, and the Raptors, who need this center, I think this is a player that would definitely make us better. But we have to discuss the logistics of bringing in Deandre Ayton because he's a restricted free agent, yes, so technically if the Pheonix Suns don't want to match an offer, you can just basically sign him as a free agent. Now, what that signing would look like, I think that Deandre Ayton is not quite max money, but he's still worth a good chunk. Like, this reminds you of the John Collins situation with the Atlanta Hawks, where he wanted the max contract. Atlanta said no. He played out the season with Atlanta, and at the end of the season, he came to terms that he wasn't worth the max contract. He took less than that, low to mid 20s, and still playing with the team. So I think this is a situation that's pretty reminiscent of that. So I still think Deandre Ayton's going to get a good amount of money. I would say he's worth between $23 to $27 million a year. You probably have to give him 4 years plus a player option, so 5 years of Deandre Ayton. I think that makes a little bit of sense. But also, I can understand why Deandre Ayton wants the max. I mean, look at his draft class. You got guys like Luka Doncic and Trae Young coming out, earning those supermax deals. Deandre Ayton was the first overall pick in that draft. Maybe he feels like as a first overall pick, he's kind of owed this contract, but at the end of the day, you still have to go and earn that out on the court. I just don't quite think he's done that. But nonetheless, can you sign him in that mid-20s range? The Raptors, I think it's a feasible option to do, but also you have to look at the financial situation of the team. The reality is we have, a good core of 5 guys that we have to worry about paying at some point. 4 of them are getting paid. Gary Trent Jr.'s contract is going to expire soon. Fred VanVleet, we have to worry about that. Siakam, that one is starting to creep up. OG Anunoby, we're good for now. Scotty Barnes, we're good for now, but at some point, you'd have to expect Scotty Barnes going to be worth a max contract, possibly a super max contract. So financially, there are some certain things that you do have to work out. Ultimately, I can't really see this coming as a restricted free agent. The most likely scenario for the Raptors is a sign and trade. So the Pheonix Suns would sign Deandre Ayton and trade him to the Raptors. Now, what this would probably look like, you'd have to trade away one of the core guys of the team. That's the reality of the situation. I don't think it would be a bad idea, a completely bad idea to trade away Gary Trent Jr. I don't think he'd want to go out to the Western Conference again. He's loving it in Toronto, and I'm thinking that it's possible to re-sign him on, not necessarily a team-friendly deal, but not necessarily one that's a bad deal for the Raptors. But at the end of the day, that's probably the most tradable player for us. You run a team of VanVleet, Anunoby, Barnes, Siakam, and Ayton. That's a very dominant team. That's a very sizable team, but also a very athletic team with a very good point guard general in Fred VanVleet. I think the floor spacing would suffer a little bit. We'd have to do a little bit more to bring in some floor spacers. I don't know, maybe you can get a deal involving Landry Shamet just to add a little bit of catch and shoot threat to the team. These are certain things that are possible. I'm not going to go into a specific trade that would make this work, but the Raptors, they would have options to make this trade happen, and Deandre Ayton does fit pretty well with the Raptors. So if Deandre Ayton does not get the max from anybody, it's possible the Raptors make a trade. But Deandre Ayton, he thinks he's worth the max contract. We've come to the consensus here on Amateur Sports that he's not. But other teams may feel like Deandre Ayton, they can give him that max contract. I don't think the Pheonix Suns are going to cave and do it. You saw what Chris Paul was able to do when he was working with JaVale McGee and Bismack Biyombo this season. They weren't formidable, but hey, in the pick and roll, Chris Paul can make a lot of centers look good, and he can make a lot of cheaper centers than Deandre Ayton look good. I'm not saying use JaVale McGee or Bismack Biyombo as your primary center for your team next season, but I am saying you can get a little bit of a cheaper option that does a job to a degree of what Deandre Ayton did, and maybe that would provide some other players a bigger role, like Mikal Bridges, like maybe a Cam Johnson. So I don't think the Suns are rushed and give the max contract, but hey, sometimes, I always say this, sometimes teams will overpay a guy just to have him. They would rather overpay somebody and have him rather than give him a fair contract and not have the player. And I think it's possible that many teams feel like they need that sort of center. They give him the max contract. If that's the case, the Raptors, they need to be completely out of this situation. And my best guess for this offseason is that he does get the max contract for a team. So in the hypothetical situation, he gets the max contract, Raptors are out. In the hypothetical situation, he does not get the max contract, and we're talking in the $25 million a year range, well, the Raptors could certainly be in play, and I'm sure Masai Ujiri is going to inquire about the availability of this guy. But what's my opinion to finish off? Do I want Deandre Ayton on this team? And I think this is pretty similar to what I was saying about Rudy Gobert. Now, I understand, in the Rudy Gobert video, I talked about how he would fit really well, but that is such a bad contract. Keep me away from how much money Rudy Gobert is making. In this situation for Deandre Ayton, he's not going to be making nearly as much money, in my opinion, but nonetheless, that's a lot of money to give to a guy when we're not in a great financial situation. I really do think Deandre Ayton makes us better, and, I understand that, hey, he's got an outside chance of developing a serviceable corner 3 game, and if Nick Nurse is working with him, that could be a little bit of a floor spacing center that you could get. Absolutely. However, that's quite a bit of money to gamble on that. And the Raptors already have a pretty good core of players. I don't think you need to add in any more players to this core. Like, I really like what we have, and I don't think Deandre Ayton is that star player that pushes us beyond, this level up to a super contender level. I just don't think Deandre Ayton gets us to that point. Now, I think there's going to be a big divide amongst Raptors fans. I think I want Deandre Ayton on this team. I haven't really come to a full decision here. I think I want Deandre Ayton on this team, but I also don't think I want to have to trade away a core player on this team like Gary Trent Jr. in order to make this happen, or an OG Anunoby in order to make this happen. I think you'd have to give one of those two plus some sweeteners, maybe a second-round pick for Deandre Ayton. I just don't think that's a very good trade for the Raptors. Again, I'm going to go back to the point I made for the Suns. Like, I think you can get a player for $15 to $10 million who does a certain degree of what Deandre Ayton does, because you've got all the offense you really need on this team. You've got all the defense you really need on this team. You just need a rim protector, really. You need a rim protector, somebody who can give you good pick-and-roll offense. And there are cheaper players in the NBA who provide that, cheaper than Deandre Ayton, like I said. So, ultimately, I think it's a little bit far-fetched to make this happen. I certainly think it's possible, and if we can make a good trade, I would love to bring in Deandre Ayton. But sitting here today, don't really see a feasible option that makes sense for the Raptors. So I don't think this is going to happen, but I think it's a distinct possibility. Keep your eyes open on this rumor. So what do you guys think? Do you want Deandre Ayton on this team, and do you think it's highly possible the Raptors could make it happen? Let's start the discussion in the comments down below, because that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please drop a like on the video to let me know that you're enjoying the content. And when you like the video, it lets YouTube know that people who have similar interests to you might enjoy this video as well, and therefore it's recommended to more people. It helps grow the channel, and it only takes you a second to do. And also, if you are new and you did enjoy the content, I do videos like these 3 times a week, always about the Raptors. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We are just under 9,000 subscribers. So excited to hit that milestone and start the next journey to 5 figures, 10,000 subscribers. But hey, let's enjoy the 9,000 when we get there. I appreciate everything you guys do for me, and I'll see you again next time for another video.